Just a quick video. These are a couple of new machines I've got in the workshop. Maybe a bit of a luxury, but you know, they're not too expensive. The big one here is a carbidizer. This is used with a stylus and electric current to put a tungsten carbide grit impregnated into the surface of any metal. It used to be used a lot 20-30 years ago to impregnate cutting tools on mills and drills to make them last longer. However, these days we can buy all the little changeable bits, which is a lot easier and cheaper. So this is a big old relic of the 80s, 90s. It's fairly similar actually to an etcher. It's got an electric current, a stylus. You can change the power setting on it, and positive or negative polarity depending whether you want to deposit tungsten carbide or take away the surface material, which actually polishes. So we've got an on button, polarity. When the light's on, that means it will deposit tungsten carbide, and the impregnate button, which turns this on. This is actually a vibrating tip, so it acts like a very small little arc welder. I think people do make them out of the little vibro engraver etchers. And it's also got a foot pedal for ease of use as well. So the foot pedal goes down. The second machine or tool is a bit more indulgent. This is a hot knife. I've been doing a lot of webbing and paracord recently, and I'm getting a bit fed up with cutting it and then burning it with a Zippo or a little candle flame. So this makes it a lot quicker, easier and neater to do when you're doing lots of them. They're about 80-90 quid, so not cheap and only really worth it if you're doing a lot of it. So we'll have a go with the carbidizer first. So what I've got here is one of my DSK blades. This is actually in 420 hardened stainless, 3mm. 420 is okay, but it only gets to about 47 Rockwell, so it's not a particularly hard edge. It's quite good for some applications. It's one of my very bad hand grounds. Full flats on one side and it's pretty much a Scandi on the other. So the plan is to put a tungsten carbide edge along this edge, and then you can leave the other side bare, and in theory it should slightly self-sharpen. As the 420 wears away, it exposes newer harder tungsten carbide grit. Obviously you would only, if you do want to sharpen it, you only sharpen the one side so you don't take the grit off. This is how they get those forever sharp knives you see in Sainsbury's and Tesco's, and that's the theory of the self-sharpening. It's also useful for things like titanium, where again you've got a fairly soft substrate which will wear away to continually renew the tungsten carbide edge. So I've got it on deposit and full power. Let's put some on. Okay, so we've got about 1.5 mm edge on there. I'll now turn it down to 1 and go over it again. That's supposed to put in much smaller parts but fill in any gaps between the large bits on the higher power. Okay, and now turn it over and do this edge, because like most of my DSKs, this has got a scraper edge on it. I won't bother filling that in because that's mainly for ferro rods, so the grittier bit should do a better job. Let's see if we can get this to focus now. So you can see that on that edge and the gritty bit along there. I'll just give this a light sharpen on the non-impregnated edge just to bring it through, and then I'll put this one out for testing, see how it fares. To say, it should give it a fairly toothy edge for things like rope, probably not quite so good in the kitchen, although that's what they obviously sell some of those forever sharp ones for. Okay, not quite as exciting. As I say, the hot knife is quite useful. This is a press and use, it takes a few seconds to warm up. Cut what you want and release it. It's not a continuous one. You can get bench mounted ones with much larger knives that just sit the knife up and you pull the cord over it and they're on all the time. But as you can see, this is what we normally have, is the furry bits. But instead of cutting it with a knife or scissors, you can just go straight across with that, and it seals both sides. And if there's any problems with it, you can always heat the knife up and just alter it. So exactly the same with paracord. Heat it up, push it through. I normally rub it on a little bit, and then you can twiddle it in your fingers to clean it up. Heat it up to clean up any messy bits if you need to. The big advantage I've found with this knife is, especially for paracord wraps, is when you've got a small hole to poke it through, you can actually cut things at an angle to give a sharp point. So you can make it easier to thread through. And again, on the webbing, you can cut at angles and points and stuff. You can even use it if you really want to, maybe for a button or something. To make slots, etc. So, not a bad little tool. As I say, it's only really of any use to somebody who's doing lots of it. Because I say, there's nothing you can't do with a knife and a pair of scissors, really. It's just time consuming, and if you're doing a lot of them, this is just so much quicker and easier. So that's the new tools that we've got in here. Thank you for looking.